Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about why the SMG transmission was the most hated transmission ever on BMW.
What? Goddamn, get it done, will ya? Woo. When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York, so you know.
So as you've seen by the title, it's why the BMW SMG transmission was the most hated transmission used on BMW. Now, if you don't know what the SMG transmission is, it was used on the E46 M3 and also the E60 M5, which moved to SMG3 as the E46 M3 had SMG2. Now, a lot of hate come about this transmission because of the E46 M3 and it going through the hydraulic pumps. And this was purely because it was the first time BMW had ever designed something like that for a road car, bearing in mind it was Formula 1 technology, and people didn't understand it, and neither did BMW. Where it was all computerized, it used a lot of computers and a lot of control components to actually make the SMG transmission work, i.e. the solenoids, the computer system itself, the SMG gearbox ECU, and they had to keep coming up with new flashes and new updates to rectify a lot of the issues, the clunkiness, the way it drove in normal D, the way it shifted, it was eating through clutches faster than it should have been. So then we moved on to the E60 SMG3 and people still moaned about it. But as the years progressed, BMW started getting better and better with the SMG and they understood it more. Now, many people still moan about the SMG being very, very unreliable in the BMW E60 M5, but that's just simply not the case. A lot of this is all by abuse of the owner, redlining it, putting it in, for instance, setting 6 and just keep hitting it, and basically what that is doing in setting 6 with the DSC off is actually dumping the clutch and actually burning the clutch out faster as you're doing that. Now, a lot of these people that do this will end up going through clutches a lot faster than your normal average person who owns an E60 M5. A lot of people will say it's clunky in the drive mode. I don't feel it's clunky at all. A lot of these people that are having this issue is probably because they haven't had their software updated. Now, if many of you guys don't know, the SMG has a software update that actually rectifies all the clunking and all the issues on the gearbox. The second one on these is to make sure you change the fluid out every 30,000 miles on them. These gearboxes are very, very good, providing they have the fluid change and they have had the update. BMW made the update because it was eating clutches too fast and also eating up the flywheel, and it was also eating up the pressure plate as well. And if you don't know, BMW rectified that issue by the update on the SMG itself. They actually managed to master it and got the final update for these SMGs correct, and it stopped all the clunking and stopped making the SMG unreliable. A lot of people still say it clunks and it's unreliable and it's this and it's that, but that's purely because they don't know how to drive it. They're driving the SMG wrong. I drive my E60 M5 in D mode majority of the time. I don't ever use the paddles. The only time I use the paddles is when M button is pressed, and that's about it. Apart from that, I will keep it in D. And a lot of this is because people just get in, want to keep the M button on and just throw it with the paddles. So then when they go into D, they're not used to it. And therefore, they're not used to the driving characteristics of the normal car in drive mode. You've got to bear in mind, it's a manual transmission doing an automatic job for you with no clutch. So when it's shifting gear, it's actually pressing a clutch automatically that you're not having to do. So think of it as a manual transmission, just you are not having to push the clutch. The computer systems are pressing the clutch in for you and doing it all for you, which will be all the solenoids on the gearbox itself. A lot of people still don't understand that, and then they start moaning that it's clunky, it's this, it's that. A lot of people, it's because they're trying to put their foot down too quick before the computer actually detects to change clutch. For instance, when you're on a hill, you'll notice it will be in second, but then all of a sudden it will change to first. And a lot of people say it can't make its mind up what gear it's in. That's just not true either. You need to know how these cars work. Now, on a hill, the car will start off in second if you're going downhill. but then the moment you're on an incline going uphill, it will be in second and it will automatically change over to first, and you'll feel it like it's jerking, and it will automatically drop the gear into first. You, as an E60 M5 owner or an E46 owner, should know that and be aware of that, how the SMG responds. I know how it now works. At first, I didn't. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I did think of it as it was all clunky, but over time you get used to it. Now I've had this car a year. I've learned how to adapt with the transmission and how the transmission adapts to you. Now, I do believe if you are a new E46 or E60 M5 owner, I would strongly recommend resetting the adaptions on your SMG transmission, purely because these cars learn the way you drive, and once they learn that person's drive style, it's very, very hard for you to adapt to the way the transmission is acting on your E60 M5 or your E46 M3, because it has learned that person's drive style. Now, when I'm talking of the E60 M5 SMG, this is the SMG 3, you'll notice the ignition is off. Now, when I put the ignition on, you'll see it's in neutral. Now, a lot of people ask how to actually lock these cars. Now, this is one thing about SMG a lot of people still ain't aware as of today. Now, when I took it to BMW to have a recall done, I come out and found it locked in reverse. Now, that was the old way BMW used to do it. That's no longer the way they do it anymore. And that just shows you a lot of these techs ain't up to date with the new technology and the new update. That's not the way. The way to lock these in drive is to move it into drive, shut off the ignition. So you'll turn off the ignition like this. You'll leave it in drive, then you'll move it over to neutral, and as you'll see there, it's still locked in drive. You'll take the key out of the ignition, and it's still, the computer's reading this in drive, but you've moved it over to neutral. Therefore, you don't get it telling you it's left in gear, and that is the way you're meant to lock the SMG transmission up, and therefore it stays in gear so it won't roll forward, but it's also in neutral, ready to start when you come to the car to start it. A lot of people ain't aware of this, and this is another reason why they end up destroying their SMG transmission and end up getting a red cog error light, and why it ends up jerking forward and all sorts of things. Now, I have explained using ISTA, you can run over the clutch characteristics, which will show you if the clutch is wearing. You can compare them clutch characteristics to a new clutch and work out how worn your clutch is or when it's on its way out. That's one good thing about having the ISTA program. You need to have it to run the E46 M3 and especially the E60 M5. The SMG pumps are very, very reliable on this, and anyone who tells you they're not is people that actually abuse them on the SMG itself. A lot of the problems on the SMG is usually people redline them to crap every single day, putting a beating on them in hot climates where the SMG fluid cannot cool the transmission down, and therefore it actually wrecks the gearbox itself and also wrecks the SMG pump because of too much heat on it, and that's what actually destroys it. It destroys the gaskets, it starts leaking fluid, the person don't realize it leaks between the accumulator gasket, and therefore what ends up happening is the gearbox destroys itself because of loss of pressure, and that's what a lot of people end up getting, why they get loss of pressure on their SMG pumps, because of redlining the crap out of it. A lot of the problems with these E60 M5s are from irresponsible owners, and the SMG transmission is no different. It's actually a brilliant transmission, and it's actually brilliant technology by BMW to bring to road cars, and it's something I think was one of the greatest inventions ever. And if you understand it, which many people are learning to understand it as the years progress, you end up falling in love with it, and you'll understand why BMW matched it to the S85 and also in the E46 M3. So I hope this is going to clear up a lot of the issues on the SMG transmission, and I hope a lot of you will understand now that the SMG transmission is not bad. If you are having problems, these are the things that will actually rectify your SMG transmission. One is the update. Make sure if your car's never been updated to go and get the SMG transmission updated, because that is crucial to make your SMG transmission stop clunking and drive perfectly. And also change your gearbox fluid every 30,000 miles. So thank you very much for watching. It's BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.